Yeah, it's fun to tell stories, and once the stories start getting told, you definitely don't want to stop it, right? It's so
Sure.
much fun to get it going. I'll tell you that I had a retired lieutenant colonel tell of the time where his soldier's mother went on Good Morning America and called him by name and said, "This captain sent my son, Lieutenant so and so, into battle without the proper training and got him killed."
Oh my goodness.
And so this friend of mine, you can go look, it's on YouTube, tells of his soldier's mother basically saying, "You sent my son to battle without the proper training." And
Yeah, that's
and
kind
it
of tough.
all look it all stems from a comment, and everybody agrees that the chaplain made during a notification of next of kin. And
Really?
it's a really an interesting story, but unfortunately, that's one of the stories that was told here, and we talked and talked about it, and I would love for you to go out there and check it out. But yeah, so we're here. I'm here with Lieutenant Colonel retired Barrow, and we're hanging out, listening to a little dandelion wine. Sir, it's good to hang out with you. I appreciate it.
Likewise. I know my glasses reflecting that screen. Oh, good. When you get our age, you need glasses.
Yeah. So I'm gonna share a few things if you don't mind. So I'm gonna take you away there, and I'm gonna turn off this dandelion wine, and I want to share just a couple of things if you guys don't mind. The first thing I would really like to share is, what's this about? What are we doing here? This is our website here, and this is me, and this is Joe. And Joe, I took this picture of Joe. He was a soldier of mine, and he designed this coin and this box and this thumb drive, and what we're doing is we're interviewing our loved ones. It started out with First Sergeant retired Robert Maggot, and he got sick one day, and he couldn't remember yesterday, but he could tell the old stories, and so we got him on the phone and got it recorded. And then recently, Sergeant Mason, he died of throat cancer, and he couldn't talk, and we couldn't get his story. And I thought, why are we not doing this? And so right after that, Joe designed a coin and a T-shirt, and I bought a setup to record and video and started doing this. And now recently we've been going live with it. We have all these shows. We have Heroes I Know podcast and on YouTube. We have a Heroes blog. We really, really appreciate our heroes. If you'd like to support us, go right there to our website, formerforce.com, and you can donate right there. I'd like to take an opportunity also to thank our donors, our basic donors, our senior rated donors, our master rated donors. Sergeant Major Fernandez, I love you. You're a master rated donor. Y'all, I love you guys. Thanks for all of our donors. It's amazing, and it's very blessing to get and see and to get the support that we're receiving. We really, really appreciate it. I really, really do. We get the honor to hang out tonight with Colonel retired Barrow, and it's really, really a lot of fun. Sir, you still got your little badge on from school. I bet you're still working, ain't you?
In fact, I was working this evening. I had something I needed to get done, and so I brought home this computer to take care of. We got several big camps for our students this summer, and it's I probably overextended myself a little bit, but when it's about giving an opportunity for these young, actually a lot of them are going to be future service members, whether it's the Army or Navy or Air Force or Space Force, whatever it might be. But we've got a camp in June, we have another one. Actually, in May, we're sending some students to the National Flight Academy. We're going to send students to my STEM camp here in Mobile. That's still on the college campus, followed by Mississippi State University has a camp for them. And then we have another opportunity to send some students to the National Flight Academy again. So it's a very busy end of the school year for us.
Wow.
And,
so
I'm real passionate about what we do, but it's I am getting a little long in the tooth for it. I've been over 20 years as a JROTC instructor. So that's
wow.
that's a couple minutes, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
it's still good for our students and good for the future. I will tell you this, that if we're not involved with these young people, America is in deep trouble. And I say that not lightheartedly. It's a fact that a lot of these kids don't have anybody to give them some structure and some discipline, but also some love is what I like to call it. You know how we felt about each other, and they say we'd rag on each other kind of hard and that kind of stuff. But when it came right down to it, we loved each other a lot. And that's what is missing in society for these young people today. They don't know what real love is. They think they do. And everybody's going to belong to something. If they don't belong to a positive element, and the sad part is JROTC, we've got about 1,700 programs across the country on the Army side. You throw in 500 or 600 for the other services as well. But we only touch a handful of lives, and there's thousands of kids that just don't have anything, and that's not good for the country. I worry about it from a strategic standpoint, to be honest with you. But so I take what I do very seriously, and I'm a product of it. And I owe so much. I'm looking for the photograph of my old instructor. I have a picture of him here in the room. But nonetheless, it's a pretty important mission what we do. And we need more instructors. In fact, believe it or not, we really do.
Well, sir, thank you so much. You say 20 years of service after retirement in the Junior ROTC program?
Yes, I did. 22 and a half years active duty, a little, I guess. And then I retired, and I went over 20 in January with JROTC. So it's been a long road, but I've committed to retire in December of 2023. So I'm counting the months down now, about 21 months to go. And then I can spend more time with these grandkids. You'll hear them busted in here a little bit. They'll be coming back from a little dinner engagement they've got tonight, but I've got two of them here at the house, little guys.
Yay. Well, we'll play the slideshow again here in a few minutes. I'm excited about that. So look, you got to take it. So got to start back at Cattleman's. Can we start at Cattleman's and really tell like the whole, like we got people online that are watching, we have an audience of, I'm sure, paratroopers. If you're a paratrooper on here, let us know. And,
those that remember the traditions that we had in the 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, and which were very wonderful traditions. We had, when I came on board, that was in 1983. It's when I joined as a young captain, just been promoted to captain. But I had our Lieutenant Colonel Jim Frederick was our battalion commander. As many of you know, he went on to make colonel, and he was a G1 with the 18th Corps, and just a super leader. He believed in powering down to us and so forth. But when we would go to the firing out parties at McGregor Range, and we all finished up our gunnery, whether it's always the Vulcan platoons, of course, but also the Stingers often had a chance to shoot. But we would go to Cattleman's, and at Cattleman's, we would celebrate in a big way. The 82nd, we played hard and we worked hard, we played hard and partied hard. But we would go out there, and I'll always remember that Jim Frederick would lead us into an airborne operation inside the restaurant. Well, fast forward a few years later, and then I had the privilege of coming back to Fort Bragg ultimately as the S3. And many of you might remember a guy named Cardini, Lieutenant Colonel Cardini. Well, he got sick, and it was a sad day because he was really a good boss and just a nice man. But they pulled him out, and I happened to be the senior major on board, and I got put into the interim command position. But we went out for gunnery, and I knew, I said, well, if I'm going to be in charge here, I'm going to do like old Jim Frederick did. We're going to have us a good throwdown at Cattleman's. And so we all went out there, and as we all know, the drink of choice for an air defense artillery regiment is tequila. And I think Sergeant Major Wilbur Adams and I bought several rounds of that, or we certainly drank several rounds of it at the behest of many of those young troopers, some of whom might be listening online. But after a couple of those, I was emboldened. I said, by God, we need to build us a C-141 inside this facility here. And we did. We had probably, I don't know, you remember, at least 10 or 15 tables that we stacked up. And I said, all right, everybody get on board here. These are your inboard and outboard seats. And Sergeant Major Adams and I gave the commands, went up through the whole thing. And then of course, we had to jump too. Now we had a green light. Everybody jumped, and we must have had a pile of 50 paratroopers there in the middle of the floor of gallons. And we were in the middle of the restaurant. And I think all of that would have gone okay had we not had one of our young captains was bold and went outside and tried to ride off into the sunset on one of their horses. And of course, we broke a couple tables, which was, for a paratrooper, that's not a big deal. But it was a grand time. And I still have, every so often, I'll have individuals that I, younger soldiers at the time that would come up and say, hey, Colonel Barrow, I remember you for this great thing, and I'll never forget it in my life. And so it was a moment to reflect on and to have a lot of good times. But I'm not sure that we're ever welcome back there. Hopefully they've got a chance to redeem themselves.
We've got that fixed now, supposedly. Yeah. Command Sergeant Major retired Sean Lear told me about how he went and fixed it a couple years later afterwards.
Oh, Sean, yeah, he was when I came back, he was a first sergeant at that time for Delta Battery. Old Delta Dogs, the one I commanded with, and Jeff Underhill had it at that time. For those of you that remember Jeff, but I will say this: that there were some great soldiers that came out of the 3rd or the 4th, and when I reflect on my career, I know that was those tours of duty with the 18th Corps and 82nd Airborne Division. That's where you soldiered the hardest. I have to say that, and just some outstanding officers that went through there. I know I owe a lot to Howard Evanston, who commanded before me the Delta Dogs, and it was just an honor to serve. I'm sitting in my room now where I have all that. My wife gave me one room that I could have 82nd kind of stuff, but it's all over the room in here. I'll pan it around.
Oh, I love it. Yay. Look at there. Look at there.
I got my 82nd. Let me see. Over there is the Italian colors, retirement stuff. So this is my refuge where I'm allowed to remember that I used to be somebody. But anyhow, yeah, we all have those rooms, but opportunities like this to meet up with our fellow troopers is pretty extraordinary. Now one thing that I was all my years in the service, the only thing I got really involved with was the Bosnian campaign. I served in the ICAOC when we did the Dayton Peace Accords, helped plan some bombing and all that kind of stuff. But for most of my career, I was on the sidelines, either training real hard or in a school. When the Desert Storm, we were at Command General Staff College, and you watched it. I just left the 82nd when they went down to Grenada. I'll take it, not Grenada, but Panama. I was there for Grenada, but we pushed out whatever battery it was that went down there. So I was blessed in many ways. But the point of my story is I have extraordinary respect for those young men and women that have served, particularly since 9/11. It's just amazing to me the commitment that they made, and it was real hard to see how we pulled out of Afghanistan. That kind of hurt to see it, and I would imagine especially so for those young men and women that served there. But their dedication and commitment has been extraordinary. And I will say I'm a little baffled. I hate to see the number of suicides we still see among our brethren, ladies and brethren. It's not good, and I hope we can get a handle on that. But again, what young men and women have done has just been amazing. It's an honor to have worn the uniform, but to see what they've done has been pretty special.
I'd like to just take an opportunity as you bring it up to let the folks know that might be watching this, that one of our founders of this particular channel and what we're doing, Joe, my partner Joe, and one of our master-rated donors just recently this week have been touched by suicide. And I just want to take an opportunity to let folks know that if you're thinking about suicide, dial 911. If you're thinking about hurting yourself,
Right.
Dial 911 and say, I need an ambulance. I need help. It is a true emergency. And
Right.
I challenge you to do it. I challenge you. Don't sit there and say, well, I didn't know the suicide number. Don't let yourself talk yourself into crazy things. Okay.
Right.
But look, I just don't know how to say it anymore, right? Make that commitment, please. Make that commitment. It's important, you know.
The other thing for us to do is when we suspect that it might be, because a lot of these young men and women still suffer from PTSD. It's a real thing. And don't be hesitant. Don't be afraid to refer those guys, even if you have to do it indirectly. I've done that for a couple of my cadre members, in fact, that work for me, and you can see it. It's pretty clear when they're frustrated and angry about something, and typically it's related to that. And so the VA is still a good source. I know the VA gets beat up a lot for different things, but they're there and they're working mighty hard to try and help slow down some of that. So I agree with you 100%.
So let me just take this opportunity to say formerforce.com, our mission is that we aim to capture, process, protect, publish, and cherish the memories of our heroes. We're all a hero to someone, right? We all have a mom. We all have a daughter or a niece or a nephew or somebody that comes around us that look to us as heroes. Absolutely, whether you've served or not. And we would love to get your stories. We're here tonight with Lieutenant Colonel Barrow, who's still serving. He's still right there every day in uniform, standing tall for our country, helping our young people to gain the skills necessary to just be adults, right? Just be adults. Right. Many kids, all they're looking for is somebody that looks somewhat what right looks like. And sir, you're standing in that gap for us. Thank you for being that guy and gal, and I really appreciate it.
Well, again, if for those that are listening, if you've got colleagues that get ready to retire, this is a great opportunity. If you still want to wear the uniform and give back, it isn't a retirement job. I'll tell you that. You're still going to work. There are days I want to say, damn, I need to be back on active duty with this job. But it's the reward you get from it is pretty special. I'll give you an example. I had the privilege about a month ago. I think it was right around the time we attempted this go around the first time. We had some technical issues. One of my young students, who from the day I met her, always referred to me as a dad or as a father, and she just got married. She's a captain now in the Alabama Army National Guard. She's AGR, Active Guard Reserve. She married an Air Force veteran that she met who was wounded in Afghanistan. So, but she asked me to walk her down the aisle, and that sort of feedback or that kind of love and that you get from these young people, because you can make such a huge difference in their lives. And we really need more men and women to fill these roles. Again, we're about 25 to 30% short instructors across the nation. And the pay is sort of like what you're making on active duty. If you have to combine your retirement with that. But again, it's not about money. It's about the willingness to make a difference in the life of a child. And I say this sincerely again, that if we don't turn this tide with our young people, I think we're in pretty serious trouble as a country. And that's a sad fact, but I don't want to go down without a fight. And we need someone to fight for the lives, because they reflect the values of this country. And it's just very important. I can't overemphasize that.
Amen. Amen. We're here with Lieutenant Colonel Barrow, and sir, thanks for being here. Tell me, you're from Mobile, right? Isn't that what I remember?
That's where I grew up from the third grade on. I'm not really an Alabamian. Of course, I buy into the football culture and all that sort of thing here. That's huge. But my mother is German. We lost my mom last June, in fact. But I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. My father was an airman at the time, a young airman who was in the Air Force intelligence side of the house, and I was a linguist, spoke the Czech language. Now he's a Florida cracker, as like I always like to talk about him, from Crestview, which is about 2 hours from here, hour and a half, 2 hours, near Eglin Air Force Base. Some of you guys have probably jumped in the great sandy fields of Eglin. Oh, yeah. But my father met my mother, and she was a war refugee from World War II. In many ways, I talked to my dad about this. I'm happy that she's not here right now, that she's in a better place. But this would really be affecting her, what we're seeing with Ukraine. It would eat her up, because she went through everything that you're seeing on television as a little 4-year-old and grew up through those war years. She lost her dad, who was killed at home. He had just been drafted. A bomb hit their apartment. They were in the cellar. He went upstairs for something, and all they found was his arm and a wedding ring. And from that point forward, they lost everything. So it was what she would see, I think, would be pretty difficult. But she met my dad, and they moved to Crestview, Florida, which she thought would be like Miami, and it was not clearly anything like Miami. But he wound up, after the service, getting a PhD in political science from Florida State University, and came to South Alabama. A young university was there, and he started as a professor. And that's my connection to here. But he went on and joined the Coast Guard Reserves, and he retired as a captain, 06 captain. So I was real proud of my pop.
Yay. Yay. That's awesome.
So military service was in our family, among his brothers, and obviously me and a few other of my cousins.
Well, so, and education, right? Look at you. You.
You're right about that. My dad was a big inspiration. I mean, he was a great man. He real proud about my dad for some other things. One, he taught us to respect all people. You know, he grew up in the Deep South, and we know the Deep South had its issues for many years, and especially from the 30s. He was born in 36 up through the 50s and early 60s, but he always had me treat people with respect, and never the racial thing was not a part of him. And so I'm indebted to him for that. And that was the way I lived my life and still do. And I have to have enormous respect for the way he taught me, and he's still very committed to this community. And many people love my pop for the things that he did for them. And I think I didn't fall too far from that tree, and that I try to emulate that example that was set for me. So real blessed in that regard.
Amen. Somebody on YouTube, Penny Cox, a lawyer, great friend of mine, says, "Thank you, sir, for your service."
Hey, Miss Penny, how are you doing?
Continue for your making a difference in young people's lives. Yeah, right. Look at that. Thanks, Penny, for watching. We appreciate it. Sir, tell me what it was like growing up as a kid. Your dad's a professor, and he's also a military officer. Your mom's an immigrant. Tell me about that.
A couple of funny things. We had a large family. He came from a family of 9. He was one of 9. 2 of those kids died early in their lives, but the rest, he was the second oldest child. But I had a lot of cousins grow up. But what was sort of funny, when we go to Crestview, Crestview was nothing like it is today with restaurants and things. It was pretty backwoods, and they lived on a little 20-acre spread that was down a dirt road, literally a dirt road. And every time as kids, when I'd go visit, I spent summers there, and it was wonderful, because as a kid, you like all that outdoor stuff and snakes, and it was wild. I mean, wildlife and prickly pears you get in your feet and everything else. And but I was always, if we played any kind of war games, I was always the designated German Nazi. So
you were the Nazi.
As a 2-year-old, my uncle shot me with his BB gun that he just got for Christmas. Nearly lost my eye. Would of course, God, my whole career would be different. I never would have been able to join the service. But so lots of funny laughs about that. But I do know I had a wonderful grandmother, and the summers there were pretty awesome. We ate well, lots of natural grown stuff. They had their little gardens, and corn and butter beans. And those of you that grew up in the South know about shelling purple hull peas and butter beans and shucking corn and all that. So I had an opportunity to do all those things, and to till and work their garden and all that sort of thing. So it's plus I had a fish pond, which was nice. You go catch some brim and every now and then a little bass. So that was paradise for me. But then when we moved to Mobile, of course, everybody said, well, you've now moved to the city, which is true. It was still a relatively small city, but a nice city. And that was during integration started. And so I changed, I guess elementary school was about 3 times. I went to Forest Hill, Johnville, and then E.R. Dixon's where I wound up at. But it was also a good time. I think things got pretty much better than they had been, I would like to say. And wound up, in high school, had some really good teachers. I was always the young guy in the class. I was born on Christmas Day in 1958 in Wiesbaden, like I said. But in Florida at the time when I started school for the first 2 grades, if you turned 6 before 1 January, you started school. So I went to first grade, and I was always the baby in the class. In my high school, my counselor said, you've got enough credits, you can finish school a year early if you want to. And I said, I don't know why the hell I did that. I look at these 16-year-old kids today, and I go, man, what were you thinking? But I accepted that offer. And then I received a 4-year ROTC scholarship that First Sergeant Thomas O. Rutherford, my instructor in JROTC, whom I love like my father, he helped me get that. And I had to get a waiver because I was 16 years old, and then you're under contract with a scholarship. Again, I look back and I say, that just doesn't sound right. I wouldn't encourage it anymore. But I was commissioned at the age of 20 and went into the Army. I can tell you some funny things about me. Let me tell you how stupid. And I did this when I was at South Alabama as a young, you think you know everything. And so here I am. The cadre at South Alabama, where I went to school, they said, you're doing well academically. We want you to push for this DMG, Distinguished Military Graduate. I said, well, what is that? What does that mean? I said, don't worry about it. It's good. I said, okay. And so then they said, my senior year, you need to get this RA commission. Back then they had regular commissions and reserve commissions. I don't know that they do that the same anymore. But they said, well, you're doing good. Get this regular commission. And I did. They said, congratulations, you are a regular Army officer when you get commissioned. I said, well, okay, good, whatever. I was more interested in my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife of 42 years. And so our orders came down. And so the guys that just did piss poor and barely made it through school and through ROTC camps and all that business, well, their commission dates were like September, November. And mine, we graduated on the 3rd of June. And they said, well, you have to report to Fort Bliss on the 5th of June. I said, you've got to be kidding me. 2 days, I've been working all through school. I never took a break. I went through all the way through. And they said, well, wait, Lieutenant to be or cadet, if you sign this piece of paper, we're going to give you 30 days leave. I said, really? Well, hell, sign me up. Because my wife and I had just gotten engaged. You know how I'm thinking beach time, Gulf shores, and down to the Gulf of Mexico, which we did. So we partied hard for a solid 30 days. And I finally get out to Texas in July. And it was primarily the West Point class. And all the West Pointers got that 30 days. So I'm thinking, well, I'm good. I got the same thing they did. Well, fast forward to December, and that's when we were getting married. And the a sergeant or somebody said, hey, if you're going overseas, you can take 30 days leave before you report for duty. I said, really? 30 days? God damn. Well, sign me up. We just got married. And so we had a little apartment here we stayed in for a month. Well, I finally get to Germany to a Hawk missile site. And for those of you that have served with Hawk was pretty tough duty in the late 70s and 80s. It was no fun. It was all business and so forth. Well, I got my first real LES, leave and earning statement. And I looked down in the leave earned column, and it said, I've been in for 6 months. So it said minus 45 days. I said, First Sergeant, what the hell does this minus 45 mean? He said, you dumbass lieutenant. It says means you're going to be on that tax site for the next year and a half where you get to zero. I said, you got to be kidding. So needless to say, I was on that missile site all day, every day for a year and a half before I got my first day of leave back. So that was a brilliant second lieutenant dumbass move that I was guilty of. But I shared that with my students when I was at South as a professor of military science, saying, don't always read between the lines. Don't bite on it right away.
Oh my gosh.
It all turned out well and gave me a lesson in life to be careful what you sign up for. But
Amen. Amen. I'm going to take an opportunity to let's watch this.
There's the little boy.
It's the slideshow I made for you, sir.
That's my two oldest grandchildren. They're now 13 and 10. That's a young man that I commissioned. He was one of my students before high school. Now a major in the Army. There's my mom. My two youngest ones, they're here. Visiting. Pulled all that off
Ever since I know your name,
Facebook
website, I guess.
You struck me on the ground for a joyride. Oh, Every kiss would be the same.
Later Hosen, it's my German
Every
heritage.
hug will last forever with you, my only love.
South Alabama days. Pop.
With you in my heart and soul.
Like this. More students of ours. That's my daughter, Tori, Wyatt.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Brian, I take kids to Sweden every year in Gatlinburg, Mobile. Another daughter, Hawaii. They were there with her husband.
When I looked into your eyes, you had me in your hand like a puppet.
That's the day we started.
Soon enough, I realized
Still do a lot of that
only
rebellion
want
with
to
our students.
sway together with you.
I bet the kids love shooting when they can.
They do. It's not like what we had. Now they shoot air rifles.
Yeah.
You did a nice job with that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, we're here with Colonel Robert Franklin Barrow, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And we're really having a good time here. And this really is all about getting our stories told before we get too sick and we get not willing to want to tell them, because it seems like, we should have got them out ahead of time. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be proactive. You and I shared time in a particular unit together that had, in my opinion, just such a storied history. And we told it while we were there. We told ourselves we are the only airborne air defense battalion in the free world. And at the time, it just kind of went over my head. I didn't really kind of get the idea and the thought of how special just our willingness to go. And look, we had more equipment than anybody else in the division. We had the biggest, most technical. We're trying to drop a radar out of an airplane and then, use it. I don't know that we would ever drop a radar, but supposedly it could, and it's just interesting to think about that. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. You have, sir, such a great story about, the Hawk days. Tell me about standing on the edge and waiting for the Germans, or waiting for the Russians to come across the gap and stuff.
Yeah, that was a very difficult part of early on as a young lieutenant. One, you're isolated. You don't see too many of your other colleagues because you're on this usually remote site. And the first challenge when you got there was to get certified with Subplan Delta and all the tactical procedures. And it was a very real, Ronald Reagan had come on board. And so that he pushed things pretty hard in terms of the arms race, and the Soviets were pushing back pretty hard. They routinely would, I know all my Hawk guys out there that ever served in that will tell you they'd fly against the border and jam the hell out of you, all their little pre-war kind of things. Of course, we do the same. We track them. But what amazed me, and I reflect on this now, I guess I turned 21 by then when I was over in Hawkland. But the amount of responsibility they gave to a young shaved-tail lieutenant and his crew, which consisted of young privates, lots of young PFCs and specialists, and some very wise, a lot of Vietnam veterans were still on board, NCOs who helped guide me. I'm indebted to those men that helped shape who I am. One of which was Command Sergeant Major Waltese. You might know that name, who was at Fort Bliss, became the Fort Bliss guy, Sergeant Major. But he was a platoon sergeant at the time, and he helped shape me a little bit. But that was not easy duty at all. One, the weapon system at that time was fairly complex. You had to learn it. If you remember, for any officers listening that took the Hawk course, it was the longest course of all of them at the time. You had the Nike Hercules track, then you had the Hawk course, and also the SHORAD side of the house. Hold on a second. I don't know what's going on the phone. There. Sorry. But that being said, typically in most Hawk units, there were only usually 2 to 3 officers that were TCO qualified or tactical control officer qualified. And every day you had to have a TCO on site and it was always a 36-hour shift. There was no getting off the next day. And that will wear your butt out after, because there's always maintenance heavy. And at night, your radars, if you were on a hot status or 20-minute status, if that radar is down, you were humping to get it back up, because everything was real. There was no, in hindsight, that always fascinates me, and I still reflect on this, that they trusted little old Frank Barrow and his little platoon that would pull the night shift duty, because any one of us was smart enough to go out and plug in an umbilical on these hot missiles, and you could lock on. We were in the track for the Frankfurt airport, that you could have shot down any plane any day of the week, and it never happened. It always amazes me that never happened, because it could have very easily. Everything was ordnance. There was, I think, the armor guys and infantry guys would say the same thing. All their M113s and M60 tanks at the time were also full of live ordnance. And you might remember too, there was a guy that went crazy. They were loading up the tracks to go to Greifenbeer, and he blew away the tank in front of him. He was pissed off about something. So that, fratricide happened rarely, but I still say the amount of responsibility we were given was enormous, and a lot of pressure. A lot of guys were fired. I mean, they were they landed a helicopter, boop, 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 boop. One would come out, another one would be gone. You're going. So I had a real good crew. We had to have the assessments regularly, where you went the vans and you went through a full simulated. They had a very sophisticated simulator at the time. Nothing compared to today, but it was pretty sophisticated. And my crew was really, really good. I was blessed. And so we had a pretty good reputation after a while there. But it was hard duty, I will say that. And it'll make a man out of you, that's for damn sure. So I'm glad I went through it. I don't begrudge it, but it was not easy at all. And I think the same thing for the Hawk guys over in Korea. They experienced similar things. At Bliss, they weren't on a mission. So when you were assigned to a Hawk, there you trained hard, but it wasn't the same. But I will say that where I enjoyed soldiering the most was at Fort Bragg, just because, and when I was assigned to Fort Benning, I was very lucky as an air defense guy to be at Benning at the schoolhouse for one tour as an officer candidate school for a year, and then later at the schoolhouse, and serving with those soldiers, because again, we were so isolated on that Hawk site, you didn't have a lot of interaction. But with the 82nd, clearly you that was all you did. Everything was a team, your combat team effort. So that I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I wasn't planning on ever staying in, but because I had the chance to go to the 82nd, that changed my mind, because I knew that for the family aspect, that Hawk business would have been pretty tough to do for a whole career like that. But 82nd was much, much different, I thought.
So you left Hawkland and somehow made it into the 82nd Airborne Division as a SHORAD guy?
Well, what happened, if you remember, you may have been too young, but General Croson, do you remember that name? He was a retired 4-star. At the time, he was U.S. Army Europe's commander. And this was in the 80s, and he was commander of all of Europe, EUCOM commander. And do you remember the Red Army from Germany, that they were terrorists, they were modern day terrorists, a little bit like the IRA in Northern Ireland. So these guys tried to kill him, and our generals, everybody had to up their security a little bit. And so my name was thrown in the hat to be an aide-de-camp to the 1-star who commanded 32nd Air Defense Command. Brigadier General Stanislaus Hoy was his name, and he picked me. I mean, I don't know why, but he did. One day I asked him, I said, so what was it about me that encouraged you to pick me to be your aide-de-camp? And he said, well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you were the tallest amongst us. And I figured if everybody was going to shoot at us, you might be what they go for. I said, well, damn, sir, thank you much. But I will say that he lives just around the corner over here in Pensacola. And my wife and I went to visit he and his wife, Mary. And because of that experience, I hadn't been his aide very long when general officers get orders and they move so quickly. And he went to Bliss to be the assistant commandant. And he asked me then, he said, would you like to go back to the unit or would you like to go to Bliss? And then you can go straight to the advanced course. So I went there. And again, that gave me an opportunity to see the Army from a different perspective rather than just that little mountaintop we were on. And that was very, very nice. I will say, too, that he treated me like a son rather than someone just to be a servant. And his wife treated my wife the same way. We're very, very close. And I remember talking to another lieutenant when we were at Bliss. Remember the hospital there? William Womack, right? No, Womack, William Womack, yeah. And the aide, we were at some social function together. He said, man, I hate this job. I said, this general just crucifies me every day. And the wife thinks I'm her personal servant. And I thought, man, how lucky I am to work for a guy who really he's developing me. He doesn't abuse me. And I made a couple of terrible mistakes that he could have fired me for just out of not knowing what you were doing. But he used those opportunities to teach me. And I carried that lesson with me. I would like to think so. And with the soldiers that I led throughout my career, to always give another opportunity, to use opportunities to help develop and shape and learn, because that's so important. Failure, if you think about it too, in 82nd, for the most part, our leadership treated us that way. They would they wanted you to go out and fail so that you would learn from it, so that if the time came that you had to do it in combat, and again, I did not, but for those of you that did, that was a great place to learn and develop. So I consider the bosses I had for most of my career were pretty darn good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, well, tell me about your little bit, what you went on to do after I went on to other things.
Oh, so yeah. So I left division in 2000 and went to JRTC and became an OC for a while, and then went to Bliss after that. It was an officer basic course, platoon sergeant. It was part of the Project Warrior program that was going on. And
where were you at JRTC? Was it Fort Chaffee or Polk?
Fort Polk.
Fort Polk. I did a few rotations at Chaffee, or one rotation, I should say. As an OC, it was pretty interesting.
I was lucky never have to go to Chaffee. Thank you. I tell you what, going up to North Fort and of course Peason training area. Oh boy, there's a lot of Peason Ridge. There's a lot of good memories there. I spent a couple years as an OC there, and then two years. Right at 2 years as an OBC instructor, and then somebody grabbed me up to be a platoon first sergeant, and I went and became a first sergeant of a Patriot unit, and then
how
spent
was that in comparison to SHORAD days?
Oh, so I loved it. So yeah. So thanks for the question, sir. One of the reasons that I loved being a Patriot first sergeant so much is my entire unit was right there in front of me. Everybody that I needed to accomplish our mission was in SHORAD land. First platoon's off with 2nd Brigade, or first platoon's with 1st Brigade, 2nd platoon's with 2nd Brigade, and it's like,
Yeah.
And
that's right.
but as a Patriot first sergeant, I became a picture taker and a cheerleader.
Yeah.
I could say that I didn't know exactly what needed to be done, but the platoon sergeant did. And I look at the platoon sergeant ahead of time and say, do you need anything else? And they say, no, we've trained, we've got it, we're doing good. I look at the evaluators and say, are we doing good here? And they go, yeah, we're doing good. And I just start taking more pictures, right?
Well, do you remember Martinez? Yeah, he went on to a Patriot unit also. In fact, later in my career, when I was working with NATO as a TACAVAL officer from 90, I went from Bragg, my last tour from Bragg, from 93 to 96 it was a great assignment. Worked for Air Central Command, and we went all over the place. And I bumped into him. He was in a Patriot unit too, and I think he had been in either Charlie Battery or Bravo Battery, but he was real excited, and I keep up with him on Facebook. He did very, very well with Patriot. Like you, he seemed to enjoy that transition where you did have everybody there, because Patriot those batteries are standalone. They have to be. You can't really split them out. So interesting.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So
And where
tell
was
me.
it? Over in Germany or stateside?
Oh, I was so I started at Fort Bliss,
Mhm.
and then we deployed to Korea, and
Okay.
then back from Korea to Fort Hood.
Fort Hood.
So I did. So my first foray into being a first sergeant, I was a sergeant first class. I wasn't even frocked yet, and they gave me an HHB,
Hmm.
and they like threw me into the fire, right? But it it gave me a complete the record NCOER to get me, to make sure I got on the list,
Right.
and so I made the next list, and then they slid me over into the Bravo battery line unit slot so that I got to deploy with the unit to Korea. And it's kind of a dream come true in a way for a leader to take a unit and go for a deployment, right?
Right.
That's you
Sure.
know, and so that's
But,
what we did.
I never made it to Korea. The furthest east I've ever gotten was Hawaii. Were you there when we flew out and jumped into Hawaii?
I didn't make the jump, but I think I remember that
We did that
when it
platoon
happened. It was
exchange.
the early '90s, right?
No, this was actually in the 80s when I was a young captain. Went
Okay.
to I think they did it for a number of years. I'm certain they stopped because of all the things we've been involved with since then. But we flew out, and I'll never forget February '84, and I was picked because it was a turnaround. It went there, took a platoon from the 82nd, dropped them off, and picked up one of the platoons out of the 25th. And so I was excited, young, 20-year-old little captain. I was the S1 at the time, but they brought several strap hangers. It was kind of a privilege to be able to go. We jumped in. While we were there, we jumped again, which was kind of cool. And then we came back and jumped back at the Bragg. And I'll never forget those 25th guys. They looked at us like we had lost our minds. It was a pretty windy day, one of those where it was 13 and holding or whatever the limit was. It was getting it. And we all got banged up pretty good on the jump, but we all walked away from it because we were young and stupid and didn't care.
And
Now we walk around, our knees hurt like hell and our backs are all jacked up going, what have I done? But, for years I was able to say that I never landed in an airplane in Hawaii, but I did land twice by parachute.
oh wow,
My daughter, she married a Air Force pilot guy who grew up 2 doors down, and they were stationed there for 3 years. Then I went to see him and see them, my grandkids. So then I landed.
oh that's great. One of
Thank you, Mr. King.
Yeah, Nobel King says thank you for your service. He's one of my platoon sergeants and squad leaders back
All
in the
right.
day when we went to Korea. He hangs
That's
around,
awesome.
and it's we got a few folks that are on here watching, and thanks for being with us. If you got something to say to the Colonel, please reach out and say hi. We really really appreciate it. If you'd like to support what we're doing, go to formerforce.com. The long and short of it is we're trying to get this oral history done and told. And, I made you a slideshow, sir, and we tell these stories that, if something happens that, tomorrow something, we pass away, we've kind of got it chronicled, right?
Yeah. Every day is a gift. People should remember that. We lost one of my colleagues who retired from JRTC. And we were actually cadets together at South Alabama. He was ahead of me, named Rodney Cromer. He retired as a major infantryman, and he caught COVID. And he called me and said, "Hey, I got this COVID. It's kind of like a cold." Well, 2 weeks later, we buried him, and that's it. Yeah, life is very precious, and it can go away pretty darn quickly. So it's not to be taken for granted. That's for sure.
No. So tell me
Go ahead.
Tell me about being a jump master. There's something about being a jump master that transcends rank. It transcends a lot of different things, right? When you look at somebody and you see that they're also a jump master, it's an instant recognition, right?
It is. If I know a lot of us still wear a ball cap. In fact, I found, I don't know who made them. It was one of our guys. It has our unit crest on, and you could get it with the basic or the star or the master. And so I ordered myself a master along with Howard Evanston, who was third or the fourth guy, and Bob Adams, another third or the fourth Delta guy, who had jumped before he went to become a pilot. But when you wear that, you're always going to have somebody go, "Hey, you're a jump master," and there's an instant bond because of that. But yeah, being a jump master was probably one of the biggest thrills of life, I would say. Who gets the chance to get paid to hang out the door of a C-141 or a C-130 or a UH-1 at the time when you did those helicopter jumps. I never did the 60, but yeah, that was pretty special. And I graduated. Here, another how luck is, if you went through the 80 seconds course, which was rough. I mean, they didn't play, as you all know, if you went through the 80 seconds jump master school down at Green Ramp. I know I showed up and I was just in the chalk. And there must have been 100 people in that class. I was just happy to be just a nobody, just a guy. I've always been so damn lanky and tall. I always get picked on easy because you're easy to spot. But I was real happy there. I said, man, this is good. I can kind of try to hide a little bit. Well, that didn't last very long because they fire people so quickly because they fail some component of the test. And so the next thing you know, I'm a chalk leader. Okay, well, then the next thing you know, you're like the XO kind of guy. And then when I graduated, I was the class leader. Everybody else had been fired, and there was about 20 of us. They were really rough on our class. And about 20 of us that graduated, and I wound up actually graduating as the honor graduate. That made me feel pretty good. I passed all the things the first time, so I still have that knife. They would give you a knife for that, and that was pretty special. But the guy on the last event that I had was practical work in the aircraft PWAC. And so it was a late evening jump. We did all the work, and you won't know until they come back to tell you. Well, I'm in line like everybody else is to find out how you did. And so you go up, and of course they read off about 800 things that you screwed up and look at you like you're an idiot. And then he said, after all that long list of just what a stupid person you are, he said, you're a go. And get out of my face. And so I walked to the back of the line and said, did I hear what I want to hear, or did I get a go? So I got back in the line. And I was the last guy. I got back to him. I said, hey, jump master, I just want to make sure I understood what you said. He said, God damn, I told you it was a go. Now get out of here. No. So that was one thing. That was kind of cool. The other one was JMPI, and they messed with me pretty bad on that one. Because, you had the three jumpers. I'm assuming they still do it the same way, and they have the minor deficiencies and the major deficiencies, and you got the time clock going. So I was busting through it. I felt like I was doing pretty good. And the last jumper, I was reaching back to pop him and say, you squared away. And the guy said, stop what you're doing. I said, God dog. You come to attention. Little E5, he's looking at me. He says, well, you know what you did wrong? I said, well, jump master, I felt pretty good. I think I got most of the majors. I'm assuming I must have gone over time. He said, well, hate it for you. Come back tomorrow. And remember, there's a long walk to that gate at the time. I guess it's still down there, but I mean a long walk. And I had gotten to the gate feeling bad, thinking I'm going to fail this course. Colonel Frederick's going to kill me. I got to the gate. He said, turn around here, jump master. And I ran all the way back to him. And he says, congratulations, you got to go. And so they mess with you pretty hard down there. So, but when you got that's like becoming of age when you were the 82nd. You always had respect if you jumped, but if you were the jump master, it was pretty special to you. And I always thought the guys that really were cool were the E5s when they would get it. That was something special because when they got to be the sergeant and they were a jump master on a plane, because you were large and in charge if you were the jump master. Didn't matter if you were the freaking 82nd Division commander, you were going to do what that E5 told you to do. And the fact that they instilled that, not too many divisions will do that, but that one does. And it says, if you're the jump master, you are the ultimate authority on this aircraft until we leave this airplane. And that's a neat thing. And it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. I hope too that you keep hearing rumors about, well, we need to do away with the 82nd or any kind of jump status because you're not going to use it anymore and all this other nonsense. And what a shame that would be if that ever happened, because that division will always be special. And I think in large measure because of that everybody you get treated the same when you go out that airplane. You are no better than anybody else, because if you have a malfunction, hey man, you can burn in just as good as any other young person. So
we're just going to turn ourselves into the teleportation brigade. We'll teleport in or something, time travel or warp in or something.
I think what we're seeing right now in the Ukraine is going to tell us that we better not do any of those stupid things, because combat at that scale is ruthless, and it's going to take brave young men and women to fight it. So,
Amen.
I sure hope we don't see the 82nd or any unit like that go away.
Yeah. Let me take this opportunity, if you don't mind, and talk to you guys a little bit about what's happening on Thursday night. We're going to be talking to CW4 retired Tracy Harris, Chief Harris, the troubleshooter himself. I can't wait. You guys will love this guy. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking, and this is a late entry and substitution. Adam Wood is going to be with us. Sergeant First Class retired Adam Wood. He was, he touts me as his first platoon sergeant. So I'm looking forward to that, and can't wait to that. And then
he looks mighty young now. That's a young.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he's had an interesting situation and an interesting life and family, and it'll be great to talk to him. I look forward to that very awesome. Much so. I really do. And I just can't help sharing our donor list, and thank you so much for our donors. We really appreciate it. Ridgeway, Wino, Cobos, Evans, William, Jackman, Calderon, Hackey, Fernandez. Thank you to our master donors, our senior donors, Newton, Diaz, Shrum, Kirkendall, Allen. Thanks. If you want to know how to donate, go to formerforce.com, click on the PayPal tab. PayPal takes a little bit. They give them their cut. I ain't mad, but we appreciate your donations. We are in the process of getting our nonprofit status. So believe it or not, it takes money to do that. So thank you. We appreciate it. It's really a passion product with Joe and I. And he has designed the kind of the coin, and
that's awesome.
Kind of designed the things that are happening. And this is kind of what we're trying to do with our lives. And we found that it's very valuable, and we're really enjoying it. Sir, tell me about things that you are passionate about in your life.
I think our passions evolve over time, as you know. We start out passionate about our careers when we begin. I think our families and marriages and children and those sorts of things. But at this point in my life, I'm very passionate about what we currently do for our young people, trying to make a difference in their lives. It's for those, I suspect many of our colleagues who might be online here would agree that it's so much fun to see someone that you had a chance to touch as a young person and then go on and do well. I got so many examples, but one, I was at South Alabama for 4 years as the professor of military science. I've got the picture of all these young men and women that I commissioned. One was just commissioned or sworn in as a colonel. She's made 06, and she invited me. I've stayed in touch and kept up with her career over the years. And she was also at Fort Bragg with the 18th Corps MP unit. So she's a jumper and a jump master. So that's pretty cool. But to see that success, and then during that video that you put together, one of the young men there, Cyrus English, who was a kid, went to LaFleur High School, came from nothing, helped get him a scholarship to go to Alabama A&M, and he made major. I've had two of my high school kids that have pinned on major now. And I know that tells me I'm definitely getting old for sure. But he asked me to swear him in again as a major and to pin the rank on him. That those kind of things, to see that means the world to me. Amen. That, and then the other on my private life is to enjoy these grandchildren that we have. We're very blessed. We have 4, got 2 great son-in-laws. My daughters, now they added to this gray hair when some of the youngsters they drug across the step out there, but ultimately, for all you dads out there, you know what I mean. It's some of the nut jobs that they want to have something to do with. But they both married some terrific young men, and they've given us a great grandchildren. And we still, my wife and I still have our health. And I look forward now in about 21 more months to shift focus to that, and then still stay in touch with the people that you've been able to touch. But it is we need younger people to take that role and let me kind of grow old and enjoy what I miss so much with our own daughters. And all of us know that if you serve, that the Army's always first. I know we preach that family and all that, but it really is ultimately you have to do what the Army says. And we miss a lot with our own little kids. My wife and I had children pretty young. And so I hope to give back in that regard and spend some quality time with these little rascals. They're downstairs. I heard them just now walking the door downstairs. My little cotton top and my grandson who just turned 7 this week. So that's
brag on your wife for me a little bit. Tell me about how you met and that love affair and everything.
She's a great gal. We met in college at South Alabama. Cheryl was a physical education major. She was a cheerleader, all these things in high school. I always thought she's a little bit untouchable, but we became friends in a couple of classes we shared together. But she was involved in a pretty bad car accident in her junior year, and it broke her pelvis up pretty badly. And she wound up in a body cast this is actually kind of funny. She was in a body cast from her chest down to just above her knees for about 3 months after they did some reconstructive surgery. Well, then I had a captive audience at the hospital because one of my professors said, you need to go visit one of our members of this little organization we belong to. So I went, and I was so impressed with her courage, because that's a pretty daunting thing. So you're going to be laid out here for 3 months. And so I'll come back and see you again tomorrow. And over the course of those 3 months, I visited her every day and then realized that she was dating I always say she was dating this highfalutin doctor, a medical doctor. She was a well-known little gal in higher circles than I was. But over the course of those 3 months, we became attracted to one another, and ultimately we became engaged. And now she stuck with me through thick and thin. I think most of us would say that military life is a tough life, particularly for spouses. And we went through hard times. Everybody does. I think if you're honest, during those years when you've got those commitments and you're just going 100 miles an hour with the military, 80 seconds kind of tough about that. But we stuck it out. We always believed in each other. And so we celebrated our 42nd anniversary this past December. And at this point, what's kind of nice is after all those things, and you grow much closer together and you become really good friends and you become the rock for each other. And that's where we're at today with each other. And again, we celebrate the fact that we have 2 daughters who are happily married and have great grandkids. You see so much where people suffer either illness or there's divorce or there's hard things or death. I mean, a lot of parents lose their children, and we haven't had to do that. And I thank God for that every day. I really do. So I got a great gal. She's been good to me. So
that's amazing.
Has some rough stories about me too, but I've finally grown up, I think is the right way. Yeah, like the gentleman thing, she wasn't too keen on that one though.
Well, look, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell somebody about that, right? But for me, like that's the best night of my life. I tell everybody that story. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. And you're right, that tequila, I guess, was flowing. Lear says there were no beer coupons, or he didn't know nothing about no beer coupons. I don't know. All I know is we had a great time. And
have you interviewed Sergeant Major Adams, Wilbur Adams?
Yeah.
He is a great man, and it's a hard, tough Sergeant Major. But I know when I talked about that earlier, and I took the interim just until the new commander came in. Colonel Young came in, if you remember. But he was just a solid NCO, and he and I still stay in touch through Facebook too. So he and another guy, he made Colonel Williams, came in after me as S3, another solid citizen. I think he retired as a colonel. Just some really, really outstanding officers went through 3rd and 4th ADA, I have to say.
Oh,
solid citizen.
Big time.
And I was blessed to be among them.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell me about what you remember as a battery commander in 3rd of the 4th of the 82nd Airborne Division. I mean, that's a critical time in your life, right? Your family's there with you, right?
Yep. I took over from Howard Edmiston, and Delta Battery at the time had a First Sergeant Boshier, who was a legend, and he left. We got in Radford. You might remember First Sergeant Radford came in. But the Delta Dogs were moving. It was an excellent unit, and so I had the privilege of continuing that legacy. We ran a lot, and we were known as a very physically fit, just a great solid unit. And I had some terrific NCOs in there. You had Sergeant Moore, Sergeant Parker, who else in the Ridgeway, but just a whole gang of just terrific NCOs. Had a couple of officers that were a little shaky that wound up getting in trouble themselves. But all in all, it was just a fun time for me. The only sad thing for me personally was, and I say sad, I had a great command, but it went too fast. And Mr. Colonel Frederick called me in his office after a year and said, "We've just been tasked to provide an officer with a TS clearance." And I had one from my Germany days. And it was supposed to go to G3 plans. And I said, "You got to be kidding. I've only been here a little over a year. I want to stay where, you know how it is. You want to stay in command." And ultimately the division picked me to go up, and I wound up in G3 operations. But, sometimes we don't realize what a gift that can be. And it really was, because working in G3 operations, you're working mostly with infantrymen. And if you can work side by side with an 82nd Airborne Division infantryman, and they have respect for you, and it's mutual respect, and you prove yourselves to them that you're a good combat arms officer as well, it was a lot of fun, and it kind of opened some doors to see a much bigger picture than just what we contributed, which was significant in and of itself. But we went on a lot of exercises, got to go all around the world just about with the 82nd's G3. Because every time there's an injury, you were gone. So you got to soldier real hard. I was in the TAC CP, just a fantastic couple of years with that, and then a year up in Corps with that. So it was pretty neat. But I did hate leaving the Delta Dogs. But I was there, and I got my guide on over there on the wall. So being a part of that, the Delta Dogs were pretty tight outfit, I will say, and just some great soldiers in that. They were some tough guys, and very proud of what they did. And we were second to none. And of course, everybody's going to say that, but we always felt that in our hearts. We were pretty squared away.
One of the neat things that I always believed in and continue to believe in to this day is that I was in the best unit in the Army while I was there. I firmly believe that, and I believe it was the best unit in the Army because I was there. And to believe that it wasn't negates my, contribution, right? Negates your contribution, because look, there's nobody working harder towards accomplishing the mission every day than me and you and everybody else that was with us. There was nobody slacking. We wouldn't let them slack. No. We wouldn't let them slack. No, you don't slack long in the 82nd. We got an EDRI coming up. We got an ORS to get ready for. You never know when it's going to call. You don't have a clue. So you better have your crap ready to go and bring your Alice pack in. And we're doing the packing list check. You're going to dump your stuff out, make sure you're ready to go,
Yep. That's I brought that to South Alabama when I was there. And all my cadre were like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Listen, everybody's going to have the same pack. We're going to do this, and we're going to ruck march occasionally." I'll never forget one of the funnest things I had when I was at South, and it kind of reflects again that 82nd mentality. Is I gave the cadet seniors, a mission, and so we're going to participate in this counter drug thing. It's all made up, but then it was very real. I said, "Here's your packing list, and I'm going to give you each one MRE. You need to be ready to roll." And so I called them in. And so we got these 25 cadets and some selected cadre. Only a couple of them really knew what was going on. And I told them about this counter drug thing. We're going to go down to Dauphin Island and so forth. Well, then we had some choppers from the National Guard landed out in the field behind the headquarters. And their eyes got big. And we went out with one MRE over a course of 3 days. It was a gut check thing. We ruck marched pretty much that whole island. We did a few missions there. And it was all about, troop leading skills and just pushing with that one MRE. In other words, you're going to have to gut this out. And at the end of it, those kids, they all came through and with flying colors. They were tired, hungry, but they knew they had done something. They were pushed so hard they had never been pushed that hard. And I said, that's what the level that's expected for you as a young lieutenant when you get your commission. And so I was real proud about it. A lot of that came from the experiences with the 82nd, because like you said, the 82nd was no joke. You were either on a team. If you were not on the team, you were off the team real quick like. And so, but being a part of that and being a part of that team, it's hard to replicate that in the civilian world. You just don't get that. Yeah. Everybody's looking at the clock or where's my pay and all this other nonsense. But 82nd fellow and the ingenuity. I don't know if you remember a guy named Sergeant Newberry, Sergeant First Class Newberry. He became our supply sergeant. He was a brilliant supply sergeant. He could figure out how your 10% and all that kind of stuff, and we never lost nothing. He managed to keep us straight, keep me straight, and I'm very indebted to that. But that's the caliber of NCOs we had across the board. You didn't have too many that just the peer pressure alone would consume you. It was pretty amazing. So
it was a group of folks. I always say that the 82nd, the 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment was fed the best officers. We were given the best. We grew the best NCOs. If you didn't, if you didn't cut the mustard, man, you didn't hang around. Look at here, who it is. Colonel Williams, my brother.
There he is.
Yeah. Colonel Williams is a master rated donor. He's one of our earliest wonderful supporters. Thank you, sir, for watching. We really appreciate you being here with us. I tell you what, it's in your honor that we tell the stories and touched by your story, sir. So thanks for being here with us. But we're here with Colonel Barrow telling his story, and it's so much fun, right? It's so much fun.
It is fun to reflect on it. Good days.
Yeah. Isn't it neat?
He was a great officer there.
Oh yeah. He says Frank is my hero. Absolutely. Apparently, there's a picture, I think, of y'all sharing some liquor together out there at Tobin Wells or somewhere.
Out there at McGregor Range. We were kind of in a transition mode. We jumped in, and I had brought with me a bottle of whiskey that was in one of those souvenir bottles, and I said, I don't need to keep a souvenir bottle. Let's drink this thing, and he shared that with me, and we had a good exchange out there. It was a good gunnery. He was a good man. He might remember too, if he's listening, some of our young officers. I was a major at the time when we went out and we started these runs, the Club 54 run. Do you remember that? Did they?
I remember it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you how that got started. There were about 3 or 4 young captains, and I was a major at the time.
No. It started from Cattleman's. This is where it started. We couldn't go to Cattleman's no more.
What? Well, we were at the McGregor Range, and the next day they said, we're going to go do this run to Club 54, which was a 12-mile route. If you go all the way out to 54 from the McGregor Range Road and then take a left and take the tank trail down. And I had gone out with a couple of guys, had a few beers the night before, and they came and got me and said, well, it's time to run. So I ran with them. I about died with cotton. He gets over that dry mouth. But I thought this was a great run. So the next year we did all the NCOs, and then the last time I went, I've got a shirt with all 3 of them. It's like 2 oak leaf clusters on that. And there he goes. Got the shirt. I still have it in my drawer right over here. And that was a hell. I think
Craig Evans says he remembers the run too. Absolutely.
He was there.
Yeah, no doubt.
But that was a great run. And when we did it with the whole unit, that last one, that was pretty awesome. I think everybody it was a confidence booster because it was a 12-mile deal. And everybody, when we did get to Club 54, because we owned the joint, we had a great throwdown right there. But that was a great esprit de corps for that. Yeah, buddy, that was a good memory.
You definitely always challenge the battalion in wonderful ways. It turned out to be a great experience. That's for sure. Thanks for your leadership in that,
Well, everybody's inspired by others, and I was inspired by some great men as well, and women.
So you say that First Sergeant Bo Shears?
He was there, and he was leaving. I think he had come out on the Command Sergeant Major's list and was moving. But again, a legend. I had the privilege of knowing him. He probably wouldn't remember me if he did. It'd just be in passing. But I thought my predecessor, Howard Emerson, had the privilege of having him as his first sergeant. He said he had 0 problems because of that guy. And but again, Sergeant Major Radford who became a sergeant major, first sergeant Radford, did an awesome job. And he was also he got ill, and then another individual went on to make Sergeant Major Lineberger came on board. He served as the interim and did a fantastic job for me as well. So I think that just about any of our NCOs could step into the breach when they needed to be and do a fantastic job, just because they had the attitude. And like you said earlier, all the NCOs were grown. You were developed, shaped, molded, fertilized, cussed out occasionally when you need to be, but trained hard, but also always in the end treated well by your NCOs, but because they knew that they needed you to grow up and be their replacements. I mean, think about it. Not very many men, of course, we were all a male unit at that time. Not very many men wanted to go to jump school at the age of 35 if you didn't have those wings on your chest as a young pup. So you had to grow your own. But that led to some really outstanding NCOs. I think that's one thing about the NCOs. They could stay there longer than the officers could.
Right.
Which was pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen. Teamwork and mentors. And
big time. Yeah. It's look, we got Nooncaster on. He says all the way, sir. That's great. Thanks for hanging out with us, Nooncaster. I appreciate it, buddy.
Sorry about that phone. It'll stop.
Oh, no problem. So if you had to go back and think about like your craziest night on a jump, or the time when you were doing an operation that was maybe the most complicated, or a time where maybe you were misoriented out there at a time, is there a stressful time you can think about?
Trying to think what we had. There were one instance, and this is kind of a funny story in the end, but you remember the big attack valves where we'd have several units being assessed at the same time, and so the division, half the division would be in the field, and one of the battalions out there during that lost a weapon as an infantry battalion, and the commander made the mistake of not reporting that early enough. He tried to find it so he wouldn't have a bad mark, that kind of thing, and he waited about a week, and we got the word. I don't know if you were part of that or not, but we've got the lockdown. Everybody had to go into lockdown mode. We went to administrative position in the field. I mean, set up rows of pup tents, and we had to wait for a few days. Well, that whole chain of command was relieved as a result of that bad decision to do that. The company commander, battalion commander, sergeant major, etc. Well, about fast forward another couple of months later, or several months later, and we had a night drop, and it went bad. One of the chalks went completely into the trees. It was on Sicily drop zone. And so we start finding everybody, and it was supposed to be just a jump to fill the mission, didn't have a mission after. Guys were looking forward to having a weekend, that kind of thing. Well, so we get all of our chutes. But we're missing a whole person. I mean, a person and his rifle. And I said, God damn, how can we have everybody shoot? So that looks like maybe that one of our guys has gone AWOL with his rifle. And you had all those roads, like Manchester and all those other ones. So we started searching, and now I was in charge, so I called in immediately because I didn't want to get fired. I said, not only have I got a weapon missing, but I've also got a whole person missing, private so-and-so. Well, we searched, for hours, and finally one of the NCOs came across this he was a new soldier, had been there just a couple weeks, probably his cherry jump. And he's standing underneath his chute, which was up in a tree. And he had been told hours before, stay right here with the chute. Somebody's going to come get you and help get this thing out of the tree. The night before, one of the infantry units had jumped, and they lost the chute. Well, that's the one we recovered. That's why we had every damn thing there. And so the stressful part was not, I was happy we found the guy and his rifle, obviously, but I had to prevent the unit from killing him because they had messed up the whole weekend for all these guys. So that was an interesting experience. But yeah, there you go. James Gibbon remembers that.
That's right.
But those kind of things, there was always a level of stress that you expected. And I think what we were good about was working through it. You just did what you had to do to fix it. That was always, we didn't get into the blame game too much. It was, hey, here's the issue. What are some solutions to this issue? Okay, that's one. Let's take it and move out, get it done. And So I can't say that I had anywhere where you were fearful of failure. We always knew we were going to be. But I'll tell you one thing I did learn, though. When I went to Corps, my last year as a captain, and I worked in G3 ops there. If you worked in Corps, that was my 4th year on my initial tour of Bragg. You were, if you were in G3 ops you were assigned a division to work with. Well, I was assigned the 24th division. I had to go to Fort Stewart several times. And then that's when I got introduced to the armor. I said, Jesus Christ, these are some badass dudes. If you've ever been, and I know you've been out there in the field where we were going force on force against armor, that was a wake up call, because that's some bad equipment they got there. So it gave me an appreciation, because we always, 82nd, we were great soldiers, but in terms of firepower, that damn mechanized divisions were something to be reckoned with. And it gave me a better appreciation for the total Army, not just what we presented, but it was pretty interesting. We jumped several times. Several of you listening might have jumped in a Taylor drop zone down at Fort Stewart. Good DZ. It wasn't too bad. Lots of stumps out there, but kind of like Rhineland. What was it? Luzon.
Yeah, Luzon, until they de-stumped it. They de-stumped it like 92 or 93, but Luzon had stumps in it for years.
Yeah. We jumped into Cherry Point one time. That was a big, huge. That's when I was a major. We jumped in there, and it was probably one of the biggest ones I think I've ever participated in. It must have had 15, 20 C-141s, big mass tack. It was a long external evaluation for everybody. It was good stuff. But I'll never forget, I'd already jumped in and landed in grass on the airfields. Airfield seizures are our specialty. And this poor guy, he had all this crap, and he hit one of those damn on the runways, all that crap they have to guide people around, and he landed right dead on it. That poor bastard moaned and groaned for a while, but you have to move out and check that onto the medics. I felt that pretty bad for him. So, what was your worst jump you ever had?
The worst jump I ever had was we jumped into Honduras, and I was screaming across the drop zone. Winds were way over what they should have been, and I hit hard.
It's a hard easy. I've jumped down there too. I guess you do too. Your Honduran wings. So my worst one was in Canada. And I worked for a guy named Gene Cole up at 18th Corps. And again, I was by then a fairly senior captain. He said, "Hey, I want to go to Canada for Menton Day." It was it's a World War II holdover between the Joint Canadians and Army Special Forces during World War II, and they called it Menton Day. And he said, "If you work this, I'll take you with me to go on this Canadian jump up to Petawawa, Canada." So we get there, we flew in to Syracuse and drove all night to get to this Petawawa, Canada. It's snowing, beat the band. It was in December. So we get there, and the range flags, these 20-foot range flags were starts. I mean, the wind was just whipping. I said, "Well, hell, we ain't jumping this crap. This is crazy." And so we went to the airfield though the next morning, and they said, "No jump, scratch." Okay, well, going back to the barracks. Then the CG for the Canadian force said, "Well, we're jumping." And since it was their mission, by God, we loaded up and we took off. And we exited. I'd never been to Canada. Hell, exited the airplane, and all you see are trees for miles. And I said, "Where the frick is the drop zone? I don't see no drop zone." But then I started watching those trees, and you know how it is when you're watching them go through your legs about 100 miles. And you say, "Oh yeah, there's the drop zone. You're going to make it." And we all burned in. It was ugly. Lots of broken legs and all this stuff. But I made it. I was like, "God damn, I'm good." And Colonel Cole made it too. And then the stupid part though was they came back and said, "Well, we got to jump one more time to give you your wings." And so we load back up. And I looked at him and said, "We've hit the stupid one." He said, "Yes, we have." He said, "Well, follow me. We're going." Well, that one, you know how that parachute would do that little, like a towel snap sometime, it'll pop you. Well, we were screaming back in again on the second drop, and I hit so doggone hard. I mean, I had a concussion because I laid there for probably 15 minutes just trying to figure out who I was. Like you see Sylvester the cat when he gets beat up, all that's real. I mean, you don't know what's what. Well, this other trooper came over and said, "Hey," said, "Man, get up. You're all right." And I said, "Yeah, I'm good." I didn't move. He smacked me around. I said, "Come on, man." What? He shook me. And finally, I could get up, and we ran to the turn-in point, turn the studios, and then they did the wing ceremony right there on that snow-covered field. And I'm just in a blur, didn't know nothing. And of course, the Canadians, like the Brits do, they drink a lot of beer. We drank beer, and I'm still just all goofed up. Well, that night, I'm laying in that little rack they gave us, and I'm hurting real bad. I said, something's not right. And I developed a big old bruise in my ass. It must have been the size of a bowling ball, but I was bleeding internally. And I had to find there was a lot of special forces guys there, and he helped drain that thing out. He said, oh, man, that looks pretty rough. But
wow.
That was my worst one. I broke my back a little, went up with a hairline fracture. So that one I remember. But the wings, if you get the Canadian wings and you're not on active status, it's red in the middle. So I say that's
really?
Yeah, you have the maple leaf is red. If you're on active status, it's white. And yeah, that was my rough jump there.
Boy.
That one I'll never forget. But we all got ended up at some point. I mean, it's just
I had I had an entanglement with PFC Friend in Alpha Battery when I was in Bravo Battery, and we rode it in and jumped up and looked at each other, said, "You okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we're like, "Woo!" It was crazy. Yeah,
I never had an entanglement. I did run off the tops of chutes a couple times.
Yeah.
You're on top, and oh shit, this is not good because you're the one's going to get your air stolen. Get off this thing quick, like
air shark, slip away.
Yeah. I'll tell you something. We did Delta Battery. You may have been there when it was one of the things I did in command that my guys thought I lost my mind. But we swam all of the gamma goats across that lake. What was that lake's name? One of the lakes out there.
Mott Lake.
Mott Lake. Yeah, Mott Lake.
So y'all swam the gamma goats?
We had 15 of them that were serviceable.
No,
the rest of them had a hole up under it, and so that was pretty cool. But I always said, these things are capable of that. Let's see how we do this thing. And it worked out pretty good. And then the other thing we did is we jumped all of our equipment one time. Here's something that inspired me. I'll never forget this. I'd asked to try, you get the jet lines. You ask you see what you can get. So we rolled the dice. I asked I wanted to jump the whole battery, and they gave me 12 C-141s just for me. No division, nobody else, just Delta Battery. And we rigged our equipment. We loaded it, jumped it, and recovered it. But I'll never get down that flight line looking down those 12 141s. And there was a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force who reported and said, "We're here to support your mission." And I was like, "God damn, this is cool." As a young captain to have these airplanes also support this mission. So all those dogs that worked the Delta dogs for that mission, that was special. That was real special. And
okay, so you took your entire battery and jumped all of it out of an airplane, dropped it or jumped it out of an airplane, right. Both your soldiers and the equipment to where you were going to be a fighting force.
That's right. I think we probably, with the load, we jumped just about everything we had.
Wow.
So 11 were dedicated to the heavy drop, and the others were dedicated to the one for the packs. But that was a pretty cool thing. And all the Joes, they busted their ass because they did every phase of it. They did the prep, the loading of it, the jumping of it, and then the recovery on the drop zone, which is equally challenging. And then we stayed out there for several days for an FTX, our own local battery FTX. But back in that era, and sadly, I don't think the Army allows that as much anymore. There you go. He's right. I think we did set a record that day, but I don't think that officers, young captains, are given that much leeway anymore. And I think that's sad. The division was real good, for that matter, most of the Army for most of my career was good about powering down, let decisions be made at the lowest level, let them figure out and give you resources to do those things. And then again, allow you to fail, not that you intend to fail, but if you do make a mistake that you can learn from it and get better at it. So that I was really lucky. I think most of us were lucky that served in that era. I don't know that they have that much latitude today, and that's sad to me. It's so centralized that they don't want any. The no failure attitude is so common, and senior leaders are afraid to give up any authority to young. And I may be wrong, but I fear that I think I see some of that, and Yeah, that sounds right.
All right, 29 platforms. Man, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. That's a big deal.
It
That
was at least 29. Yeah. So
wow,
that was
wow.
a good mission, and real proud of all those soldiers that did that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm sure a
There's
lot of us
something
will be there.
about being a paratrooper and being willing to fling your body out of an airplane that makes you a brother with someone that's also willing to do the same very quickly. It's a shared hardship that just breeds a kinship unlike no other. You know.
That is a fact right there. So, Old Gibbon was a good soldier. I see his name pop up several
Yeah.
times.
So I
Outstanding.
did it. I've done an interview with him. He's a proud supporter of Marshall in the Middle. As a matter of
Outstanding.
fact, I have I have his letter and check right here. He sent us a money order right
Look at
here,
me.
and he wrote me a handwritten letter. It says, "First Sergeant, this is my contribution for the cause. I would give more, but I'm currently a poor college student. Please keep up the good work all the way, James D. Given." So,
That's awesome.
it's really great to have wonderful supporters like that. Like if I publish something, James, it seems like he watches it, he likes it, and I
He
really
popped on.
appreciate that. Right, really appreciate that. That means a lot, and it's really great to have wonderful supporters for what we're doing. And sir, I'm just wondering, is there something we haven't talked about that you might want to talk about? Or, we've been going about an hour and a half. It's been a lot of fun,
A lot of fun. A lot of great memories. It's interesting because as I've sat here over the last hour and a half, a lot of it you have back in there, but you just don't talk about it but seeing all the names pop up of people that and have such high regard for, I think that what's important, and maybe the older you get to, you get more compassionate, more understanding, more willing to forgive mistakes that are made, but to see the next generation go forth and do well. That's so important. And I know that's wisdom that comes from having to learn sometimes the hard way, but I can't overstate to me how blessed I am as a man, and everybody online can say this, that we're still here. We lost a lot of brothers and sisters over these last 2 decades, and we can't waste that opportunity. So I admire what you're doing here. Because of that, we should not forget that contribution made by those that aren't here. I know I lost one of my kids that I commissioned, and named Robert Sikorsky. He's someone I knew personally, just a great young man who went over as an infantryman and got killed by one of these damned IEDs. But those men and women that aren't here anymore, it's important that those of us that are don't forget their story and don't forget what this is all about. And that we have to recognize evil when we see it and be willing to still stand up against it. Because what we enjoy as a country today can go away. I always share this with the students when I was still in the high school classroom, that, if you look in the 1900s, early 1900s, Great Britain was a major power. It was the sun never set on Great Britain. And it was considered the most powerful nation in the world. Well, today, other than the fact they have nuclear weapons, they're not the United States. That this country, what we enjoy, can't go away, but we've got to be vigilant and be very aware that if we don't hold the line and continue to influence those that are following us, that it can go away. And I take that very seriously, but I worry about it sometimes. I guess when you become a grandpa, you do. You look at these young kids, and then you also see what the high school kids are going through, and college kids, and their emphasis is different. So I think we're on the cusp of defining where we are as a country, and it's important that we make our voices heard through things like what you're doing here. So I know I sound like an old philosopher, but I kind of enroll every day with what I do. But chances like this give you a chance to reflect and be so grateful for what we have as a country. We are such a rich country, and rich in many, many ways.
Amen.
And I'm blessed to have been a part of it. So
Colonel Williams says amen.
He does. He's
right. Yeah. James Gibbons says we cut a lot of honeycomb.
Yeah, we did. We sure did. Loading those things up.
Well, sir, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I'll give you the
Well,
last word.
I'll look into this www.formerforce.com and see what we can do to contribute as well. But again, for everybody online, thanks for listening to this old guy talk for a little while. But just know how much it serving with everybody that's been on here this evening and all those others that aren't here this evening, how much that meant to me to be a part of that, and the privilege of leading when I had that opportunity, and also to be the good teammate when I had that opportunity. So it's really fantastic, and I hope that we stay together on this type of a platform, and as we get older together. But it's been fantastic. Really admire you for what you're doing. I know this takes an extraordinary amount of time, and but I can tell too that you love your passions in this, and it's similar to what I do. You're keeping the story told and keeping it alive, and it means a hell of a lot. So, but really fantastic evening for those voices on that were commenting with their notes. Really good to hear from y'all. Really was.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for hanging out.
Y'all have a great evening, everybody.
We'll sign out with a little dandelion wine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good night, everybody.